Once upon a time, there lived a famous king, known not only for his bravery and leadership, but also for his immense kindness. He ruled his kingdom with a compassionate heart. He always looked out for the welfare of his subjects. The king would often visit the villages, offering help to the poor and listening to their grievances. He built schools, hospitals, and shelters for those in need. His reign was marked by prosperity and peace, and his people loved him dearly. But even the kindest kings can make mistakes. One day, while hunting, the king rode through the forest with his men. He saw movement in the bushes and thought it was deer. He quickly drew his bow and shot an arrow. Suddenly, he heard a cry. The king's eyes widened in horror as he saw a little boy fall to the ground. The king ran to the boy.
"Oh no! What have I done?"
he cried.
"I thought you were a deer."
The boy, barely conscious, and he looked up at the king.
"Please, help me,"
he whispered weakly. The king's men gathered around. They were shocked.
"Your Majesty, we must get him to a healer right away,"
one of them said urgently. The king nodded.
"Yes, we must. This is my fault. I will do everything I can to save him."
Despite the royal doctor's best efforts, the little boy couldn't survive. The next morning, the doctor came to the king with a sad face.
"Your Majesty, I have sad news. The boy didn't survive,"
the doctor said. The king closed his eyes, feeling very sad.
"This is my fault,"
he whispered. The boy was the only son of a poor widow. The widow heard about her son's death and was very sad. She went to the judge's court and cried. She told the judge what had happened and asked him to give her justice. Now the judge wondered what to do. If he was just, he would have to punish the king. If he did not punish the king, he was doing wrong. Finally, the judge asked the widow to come the next day. He then asked his assistant to go to the king and ask him to come to the judge the next day. The assistant was trembling. If he did not go, he might lose his job. If he went to the king, he might cut his head. The assistant went in the early morning and stood outside the king's palace with great courage. He started beating the drum. The king heard this. He ordered his men to bring the assistant inside. Then he asked him,
Why are you beating the drum at this time?
The assistant said,
O king, forgive me. I have to do my duty. The judge has sent me to summon you to his court. You have to appear before him tomorrow morning.
The next morning, the king went to the judge. He hid a sharp sword under his robe. The judge was in court. When the king came, everyone stood up. The judge did not stand. Then the widow was called. She described what had happened. The judge said,
O king, you killed her only son. You have done a crime. It is a great loss for her. As you did this by mistake, I order you to compensate her.
The king at once begged pardon from the widow. He gave her gold and gems, so that she could live comfortably. Then the judge got up and asked the king to sit on his chair. The king said,
If you had not given the right judgment, I would have beheaded you. See, I had brought a sword with me.
The judge said,
Sir, if you had disobeyed me, I would have whipped you. See, I have got a leather whip with me. Thank God. We both did our duty.
The king was very happy and embraced the fearless judge. Moral: justice and duty must be upheld fairly, regardless of one's status or mistakes.